U.S. President Donald Trump is tweeting about Robert Mueller's investigation into possible collusion. And here's what he wrote Saturday night. I allowed White House Counsel Don McGahn and all other requested members of the White House staff to fully cooperate with the special counsel. In addition, we readily gave over 1 million pages of documents, most transparent in history, no collusion, no obstruction, witch hunt, exclamation mark. Now, the tweets presumably in response to a New York Times article reporting the White House counsel cooperated extensively in the Mueller inquiry. So for more on this story, we're joined now by David Martosko, and he's the U.S. political editor for thedailymail.com. David, let's start with these tweets today and the article, of course, that came out in the New York Times. So what do you think is Trump's strategy here with this response in these tweets?
Well, of course, right now he can't admit any sort of panic or concern or anything. He may very well not be concerned. Remember, he works with Don McGahn. It's entirely possible McGahn was briefing him on a day-to-day basis about what he was telling the special counsel. It's entirely possible he was having three-way meetings with Trump and the White House chief of staff. So Trump may very well realize he's got nothing to worry about. He may be terrified, but he's not going to show us either way. I think it's important for your audience to realize what Don McGahn's job is, what his role is in this. He's not Rudy Giuliani. He's not the president's personal lawyer. His job is not to represent Donald Trump, the man. His job is to represent the institution of the presidency and to represent the institution of the White House. So that means a couple different things. First of all, it means he doesn't have to be Donald Trump's, spear catcher or whatever, take all sorts of incoming for him. It also, however, means that it's his job to tell the special counsel what the limits, what the boundaries are of the sorts of questions the White House is going to answer. Mueller will say, did this happen? And McGahn will say, well, I'm sorry, sir, that's simply not within the purview of what we'll allow. We'll assert executive privilege over this or that and so forth. So he may very well have been doing Trump some serious help in these long interviews. Now, 30 hours of interviews with the prosecutor who's been turning your boss into knots is not something to be taken lightly. But so far, there's no evidence about what he told the special counsel, and certainly no reason to believe it's put Trump in any hotter water than he's already been in.
Now, in terms of the timing that this news is coming out and the possible 30 hours of interviewing that's being reported, is there anything specific about why we're finding out about this now, or why McGahn may be speaking or cooperating with investigators now?
Well, honestly, there's two reasons, and we simply can't know which is true. On the one hand, it may very well be McGahn himself leaking these sorts of things to the Times as a way of sort of preempting any thoughts about him being legally liable for anything. He may very well be conscious of the example of John Dean, Richard Nixon's lawyer during the Watergate, who wound up being sort of on the hook for things. And he may very well be going out there and telling the press, look, I'm doing my part. I'm not the bad guy here. Now, that's, of course, if he's putting the president to trouble. If not, it may be the White House leaking this out there so that Trump can come in behind it and say, see, we've got nothing to hide. I told McGahn, go and talk as much as you want, share as much as you'd like. There's nothing to hide. Now, that, of course, has been his mantra since the very beginning. We've given 1 million pages of documents. We've told them everything they want to know. The only limit he's proposed having on it is what sorts of questions he'll answer himself. And as I'm sure McGahn told Robert Mueller, there's a reason for that. Article 2 of our Constitution sets up the president as being in charge of the entire executive branch, including the Justice Department. That means that while Robert Mueller is independent of the rest of the Justice Department, he doesn't have to answer to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, he is not independent of the White House. President Trump would be very unpopular if he fired Robert Mueller, but he'd be well within his legal and constitutional rights to do it. That means that Mueller has got certain limits. And I think McGahn's job is to tell him what those limits are. And it's possible the White House is leaking this so that they can assert complete transparency. And Robert Mueller, of course, will stay silent. He's been quiet through all of this, as has been his habit throughout his entire career. He lets the media do the media's job. He lets the clients complain and the lawyers whine. And he sits back with the cards close to his vest, and we have no idea what he has until he wants us to know.